Hello, my name is Janice B. Gordon. This is Scale Your Sales podcast. Welcome to the Scale Your Sales podcast, listed number 9 of 42 best podcasts for every sales professional in 2021. I am Janice B. Gordon, the customer growth expert, recommended by LinkedIn as one of 15 innovative sales influencers to follow in 2021. Today's guest talks about Side B. The title of her book is Side B, Remix Your Leadership Style. In this episode, we go through the differences between Side A, the predominant leadership style, and Side B. These are the leadership traits that are really important, not only now, but going forward. These are the leadership behaviours that are required, not only from our employees, but also from our buyers and customers. So my guest goes into great detail of what are the leadership Side B traits. So make sure you listen in and comment. My next guest is a leadership coach, author, speaker, and music enthusiast. She uses the power of music, both metaphorically and literally, to transform the next generation of leaders in her workshops and corporate programs. I'm so interested to find out more about the link between music and sales success. Hello and welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast, Paula White.
Oh, Janice, it is so great to be here. I am so excited to speak with you and really talk about music and leadership.
Yes, this is such an interesting subject, music and leadership. So the first thing I want you to explain, the B side, the silent track of leadership, is so musical even saying it. So talk to me about that, Paula.
Yeah, well, I went to a concert in Atlanta, Georgia, and the Struts were playing in this little quaint venue. So I got to go up onto, excuse me while I put the drumsticks down. So I got to go up into the balcony and just sing and enjoy. But there was this moment that I looked down and I saw the bands and the musicians really feeding off of each other, right? It was something so inherent about that and so authentic about it. And I went back, it was just a moment, went back to the concert, had a great time. But when I got home that evening, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And hence the B side came around, Side B. And so Side B is really your positive behavioral traits that actually complement your resume traits. So I got to work with a neuroscientist, a psychologist, and a musician to kind of put all of these things together. So some of the B side and some of the Side B traits that we talk about, I keep saying B side, but Side B traits are, they're not just empathy or authenticity. We talk about curiosity and courage and kindness and trustworthy and ethical and graciousness. So there are 10 positive behavioral traits.
I think this is really interesting. It seems that the time is now for Side B. The time is now because of the pandemic and so much has changed. Our experience and our expectations of what we've considered to be the corporate world or B2B and how we should behave. With the pandemic, we've been on Zoom a lot and Teams, and we've been seeing into the homes of people, and their style has been so much more relaxed. The language, it's short messaging. So there's so much has changed in the business world, and it seems that the word empathy didn't exist before, whereas everyone was using words like empathy and authenticity. So it's interesting that you have delved even deeper into this and come up with more B side that's essential to being the leader we need today. So how did you come up with the other aspects of side B?
So interestingly enough, so yes, I agree with you 100%. You know, we talk about empathy, authenticity, vulnerability, but not everybody can feel that, right? So I started to look at a band and how a band behaves with one another. There's not just one thought, right? They're going towards one song and they're rowing in the same direction or playing in the same direction, but each person has a different skill set. Each person has a different viewpoint or advantage point. So when you bring a band together, you have to really look at it as a whole, like a diversity of thought. So I took the drummer, for example. The drummer is the one who sits in the back, and I looked at like I said, I looked at what is the drummer's main purpose in the band. It is to keep tempo and to keep the song moving forward. So side A, the resume building skill, is your forward thinker, your visionary, right? So what complements that? And your side B is curiosity, because the only way you're going to move forward, and we know that the path to innovation is really asking a lot of questions, and that's being curious. And it's not just asking questions of your board members or your senior leadership team, but going to the front lines and going to people and just being curious about what they're seeing. So you'll see how they start to complement each other and how the band relates to it.
Wow, that's interesting. So you've been in sales for a long time.
And 30 plus years.
And so you've seen how it's evolved and developed. So talking about side B, remix your leadership style, how much of that is in sales? How much of that has come from your experience of being a leader in sales?
I would say the whole thing really came from being a sales leader. However, it really transcends to any leadership, and not just leadership by title, but a leader who is, emerging and high potential, or even someone who doesn't want the title, but is a leader with their customers. But yes, I was in sales for over 30 years, still am. I'm a salesperson at heart. I remember sitting with my dad while he was ready to go to the Atlanta furniture market, and I would shine his shoes up to get to the market so he could sell. But a lot of that comes from really understanding the sales process and the sales function. And that, like I said, can transcend across all lines of departments and careers. But in sales, you'll see that ebb and flow there's this, I don't mean to interrupt myself here, but there's a song by Frank Sinatra that calls That's Life. And if you listen to it, it reminds you of sales. So I actually retermed it to That's Sales, because you're up in May, you're down in June, and you just keep going. But as a leader, you need to be there for your people. You need to get them through those ebbs and flows. And sometimes leaders don't recognize that somebody needs to be led a different way than somebody else. So we can't just have one form of leadership. We really need to tap into ourselves to find out how we can serve everyone.
Yeah, I get that. So you talk about in the book that leaders have potential derailers that are counterproductive and can significantly impact performance. So talk to me more about that.
Sure. So again, if you're not balancing your side A and side B, you're really off balance. I always tell people to cross their hands one way and try and cross them the other way. It's off balance. But let's take a paradox that, one leader is frank and one leader is diplomatic, right? So we have a side A trait, a very dominant trait, and a supportive trait. So if you have frank and diplomatic, you'll see that if someone is frank, their leadership style could be very blunt, could be very, forceful. Not everyone responds to that. Then if you have one leader who is all diplomatic, they seem kind of wishy-washy. They're not really, taking charge. So to have an effective leader, you have to be strong in both frank and diplomatic. So that's what I talk about, having some of these derailers of not having both sides of the coin or both sides of the record, as I would say. You don't have both sides of the record to balance it. That can be challenging to your teams.
This is really interesting. The thought that I had was women in leadership and the differences and how we perceive what a leadership style is, what's good and what's not good, and the different traits. And it could be argued, and I'm not sure if it's a straight line, that men are predominantly A side or side A, and when women are predominantly B or side B. You probably know more than me, but I think it's quite interesting how we perceive the dominant side A as being good, and the side B that you're talking about that's really important as being weak, wishy-washy, not so good. But actually, this is why women are great leaders for this time right now. So I'd really love to get your view on this in terms of diversity in women and side A and side B.
Right. So you're exactly right, because what is happening right now, and I wouldn't say it's just leadership in this point. I think it's going to be leadership from now on, right? We're going to be looking for leaders who have that courageous style, who have that curiosity, trustworthy, ethical. We're going to have those side B traits, and they're going to start showing up on our resumes. But, men are predominantly side A because they're very, very much, and I don't want to say all men, because there are some great advocates and allies out there that really understand that behavior. And I'm not going to call it motherly, because that's how I was labeled for such a long time. It's more nurturing and it's more it's more perceiving and taking care of your team. But the side A, the resume building skills, and the side B, positive behavior traits, while one could be predominantly male and one could be predominantly female, it really takes a balance of both to be effective. And so those leaders who are side A, that start to really build that character, side B traits, are really starting to balance that leadership and bringing their whole self to work. And that's what our employees are craving right now. They want to see leaders bring their whole selves to work. They want to see leaders who are not just vulnerable or empathetic, but they want to see them courageous, and they want to see them trustworthy. They want to see them as kind. They want to see that that person in the leadership role that they look up to is a human being. And it's really bringing humanity back into the workforce. Whereas women with side B predominantly, we're building our side A traits like you wouldn't believe. And if given the chance to show those without being labeled the other, then you're going to see that those skills are already there. They just are being balanced.
This is really interesting to me, because I think that we've got a way to go so that we don't label side B traits in a negative way. And the reason why that's really important is because in recruitment, if we're recruiting for, and this is the fault of many recruiters as well as within various industries, if we're recruiting for side A, as we have always done in the past, and we don't value side B quite so much, then we're misaligned with the future of leadership. And it's not just our employees, it's our buyers, our customers are expecting, they're already on this path. And I certainly know in the sales industry, we're still catching up, we're way behind. So what do you think that the industry, particularly the sales industry, needs to do in order to ensure that we're not labeling negatively these side B traits?
Well, that's a great question, Janice, and really great, because there is a lot we can do. And one is perceive each human as a person, right? And not put labels on anyone, but really find out and uncover what their side B is. If I have a side B as trustworthy, I'll tell you what, I'll take that person all day long, because if the employees and the customers and the branding all trust that person, sales are going to rocket. If someone has so much passion, and that's another side B trait, if someone has so much passion for their job, but also has the resume skills to back it, I'll take that person all day long. We used to talk about grit and drive and all these behaviors that were forceful, right? We can't have that. We need to start looking for trustworthy, ethical, kindness, graciousness. And I do have a survey out there that actually lets you know what those essential traits are to that behavior, so you know what's naturally inside of you. And I would say we're going to start seeing some, not just competencies, but we're going to look at behavioral questions that are going to start to pop up in our interviews.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, because the end product of that is that we've got this pay equity gap, and it's because we have a behavioral gap on what we value. So I wonder, it's chicken and egg, which comes first? If we had parity in our leadership, and I don't mean non-executive, I mean that senior leadership, if we had parity in equality there of diversity, then I wonder if quite naturally that would start to close the gap, or whether there are other things at play. I don't know what your view is, Paula.
Well, that's an interesting question to pose out there. There's so many different things at play, right? There's environment, there's character, there's all of that. And until we can get to a point where we're showing that character is just as important as resume, and balancing both, taking that both and approach to leadership, we're not going to get the pay equity either. And I would venture to guess that even in the senior leadership or the executive boardroom, until we have diversity of thought in that room, we're not going to get to that pay equity, because we want to make sure that that is viewed at as essential to a leadership role, to a company, to customers, to the buyers, right? They want to see diversity, not only diversity, equity and inclusion, or equality and inclusion, is we want to see diversity of thought too. But until we can get to that thought process, that's where the pay equity is really going to have to come together, because what happens is, from an HR perspective, once you get to that point, there's really no check boxes. We're looking at a person individually.
I always feel what gets measured gets done. So we need to expose it and measure it
Yes.
to actually see and not keep it all hidden. Okay, what one tried and tested strategy would you offer listeners to enable them to scale their sales?
Oh my goodness. So there's so many different ones, but let's tap into music for a moment, right? You're getting ready to close a big deal, but something's off with you. You're not ready to make that call, ready to walk into that meeting. Something just feels like, if I don't get this, and you're getting impatient, I'm going to tell you to put on a good song. Put on something that is going to motivate you and get you recharged, that your mindset actually changes. And that's how we increase sales. Even when I was leading inside sales departments, we would use motivational music to change the mindset of a boring day, right? It's like, get up, get going, get your groove on, and you would see sales start to climb. So, when we look at music in affecting both sides of our brain, that's where we get to really tap into the motivation, or even if we're angry, something that's going to calm us down before we react. That's how we get sales.
Do you know, Paula, when you're talking, I was thinking, gosh, that's what I need to do. I do love dancing, but I haven't been out. Well, no one's been out dancing in a long time. But actually, in my studio, I can dance around. I just need to have my selection of music. Why didn't I think? Thank you, Paula, for that gift. It's great. I love that idea. That's brilliant.
You're welcome. And I will tell you that if you just put on a song, your mind frees up and you can remain focused. And actually, for me, I get creative with songs. So I'll hear a lyric and I'll go, "Ooh, we could run a sale off of that promo, or we could do a sales incentive off of that lyric."
Yeah, love it. Okay, so what's the one thing you would take with you if you're on a desert island on your own, Paula?
Oh, I remember asking this question, and there's so many things. I think I talked about, I love music, but I could probably get music with the different things there. I could create my own instruments and things along those lines. But I would say I would have to take my husband. And my husband, because he does all the work. And not because, I love him dearly, but he would build the hut, he would get the fire, and I could just do what I needed to do on a desert island.
You could create music, couldn't you?
I could create music and let him work to it.
And he's in his zone doing what he wants to do. It's a happy long relationship, which is
That's right. Yeah, he loves woodworking.
Oh right, okay, that's perfect. He'd build you the boats, so that's whenever you're ready, you can get off. Yeah. I love that. So how can listeners get hold of you, Paula?
Well, they can either get on LinkedIn with me at Paula S White, or I'm on Instagram at Side B Consulting, Twitter at PSWhite00, or just look at my website, paulaswhite.com, and you can get a hold of me there. This has been so fun, Janice.
I'm glad you've enjoyed it. Now, remind us the name of the book.
It is Side B, Remix Your Leadership Style. And I have a copy of it so people can see.
That's what it looks like. So listeners can grab hold of the book. Thank you so much for being a guest on Scale Your Sales podcast, Paula. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I've loved the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Janice.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Scale Your Sales podcast. If you like this discussion, feel free to listen to other episodes or watch the captioned show on YouTube and subscribe to future episodes. I would really appreciate it if you would leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you.